Hi folks, we're Tacitus today. Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the various scams that Indian labour hire firms and businesses are engaging in, whether they're based in India or based in the West, it hardly matters. Now, this probably wouldn't be an issue if millions upon millions of Indians weren't pouring out of India or the subcontinent generally, Pakistan, Bangladesh. They weren't pouring out of the subcontinent into the West. And the only place they want to go is the rich white West. And so, and they believe they're entitled to that. And they believe that all sorts of nonsense, such as India was a mega rich country, flowing with milk and honey until evil Whitey turned up, and all these sorts of things. So they've been conditioned to believe that not only are they entitled to go to the West, but they're taking back the riches that were stolen from them by evil Whitey in the first place. Of course, this is absolute and utter nonsense, but nonetheless, let's just accept that's their mindset. So they come to the West. Now, there's a very low bar for migration. If you look at the amount of Indians that arrive, whether they say they're asylum seekers or it doesn't matter, but the amount that are arriving in the West, Australia included, many hundreds of thousands of Indians arriving every year under all sorts of, very spurious low bar entry requirements. And most of them end up staying. There are entire suburbs in Australia here in the big cities that are Indians only. You go to the local grocery store, you won't see another white person. There are parts of Sydney where if you get on a train or a bus, you'll be the only white person there. The rest will be Indian. Many of them wearing national costume, even though some of them clearly have been here for many years. They stay within their group. They send back to the village of their ancestors for husbands and brides. So even if they're 5 or 6 generations Western born, they're still absolutely fixated on genetic and cultural purity, and they don't want to integrate or assimilate at all. A very small percentage do, but it's not even 1% as far as I can tell, at least. But what I want to talk about, particularly in this essay, is about the level of fraud. Now, the trouble is for when any migrants come from, again, whether they claim to be refugees or not, but when any of these people come from third world, very low trust societies, and India is probably one of the lowest low trust societies in the world. And when they come to a high trust society, they don't see that, hey, look at all these high trusting people, this will be great for me to work hard and get ahead of this or that. People aren't going to be out to cheat me and trick me and deceive me as they are in India all the time. So this will be a great place. It'll be, in terms of opportunity and social value, if you like, the inherent social capital, this is a great place to be. But instead, the Indians or other third world people, I'm singling out the Indians because so many of them are coming and are desperate to come to the West, is that they don't see the high trust in a social capital sense. They see the riches and the money and they want to get their grubby hands on it, that they see. But they don't see the social capital side of it. What they see is naive, gullible people that because of their trusting, because it's a high trust society, they see naive, gullible people that will just believe, the lies that they're told, and along because of that, they can be cheated and tricked and deceived and fraudulently or defrauded of their money and this sort of thing. So that's what most of the third world people see. They don't see the social capital side of high trust, and I think they're incapable of seeing it. They just can't get their heads around it. Wealth creation is something, again, that Indians, for example, just cannot get their heads around that. To get more money, you have to steal it from someone else. So they come to the West with a mindset of, to get rich, I've got to take someone else's stuff. And I've got the normal business in India is that you trick, cheat, and deceive. The fact that you're a heavy hitter means that you're hard to deceive, difficult to deceive, if not impossible to deceive. So the Indians' perception is that everyone's trying to deceive them, but they see around them these high trust people that they misinterpret as being gullible and easy to trick and deceive, and you can lie to these people and cheat them out of anything. And so they perceive themselves as kings, giants astride the stage because other people believe. Now, the third world people, but Indians in particular, and Arabs as well, but Indians in particular, have this view that if you believe their lies, so if they successfully tell you, if you believe their lies, then you take at least as much responsibility for the lie as they do. If you're so dumb that you believe their lies, then you are a co-conspirator in the lying. That they're not at fault, really. It's your fault for believing the lie. So the Indians don't feel shame for, and again, other third worlders could be fitted into this category. They don't feel shame in telling you lies and deceiving you, and because if you believe, for example, if there's, so I mean, I'll use an employment form, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But if they say they've got 3 PhDs from the University of Ouagadougou or something like that, you say and you believe it, then you're the idiot. You're the one. You're the one that's not up to scratch or par. That they haven't really done anything wrong in telling you the lie. They just that's what they need to do to get what they want. So that's acceptable. But if you believe it, then you're the one that fought. If you hadn't believed it, then it wouldn't have been a problem. But so when they do get caught out, and I've caught Indians out so many times, falsely claiming to have degrees in this, that, and the next thing, and PhDs, whatever. When you catch them out, they just don't perceive they've done anything wrong. That way, yeah, you believed it though. You believed my lies. So it's your fault. So they come with that. So this means they can engage in mass levels of fraud, deception, and treachery, and and so on. And they can do it without anything that we would call in the West a conscience. They're just they're just shameless about it, and they generally don't perceive they've done anything wrong. Now, you could say that any sort of people that are living day to day or hand to mouth or that sort of thing may be inclined to just see every transaction as what can I get now, right now? What can I, such as a robbery or something like that. And that is a mindset that people at the bottom end of the scale do tend to have because they can't plan ahead or think longer term. So, and they can't count on tomorrow or anything being the same as it was today. But the level of fraud and so on that the Indians engage in is truly mind-boggling. And again, if there's only 1 or 2 of them coming to the West, it wouldn't matter. But given that there's millions of them coming into the West, hundreds of thousands every year just into Australia alone, then it is an issue because of the scale of the thing. So here's now I'm referencing here and using as an example the amount of Indians, Sikhs are well represented in this one, and the Punjab generally, but who come to America claiming asylum or claiming all sorts of things, claiming to be PhDs in truck driving and whatever it might be. And then they come in and find they don't speak English. They've never driven a fucking truck in their lives. They can't drive. And they come to the United States and to the West generally, and they're given on the basis of their supposed qualifications a driver's license. Now, it turns out that many of these people, they take the driving test sort of 10 times and fail each time. You'd think that would be a bit of a in Australia, if you flunk a driving test, I think you've got 30 or 60 days before you can apply for it again. So if there's 10, if you flunk it 10 times, and then it would be somewhere between 10 and 20 months before you could assuming you even passed on the 11th time. So, but in the United States, you just can go to another state and just do the testing there. And if you go to a state with lax enough rules, you can actually get someone else to do the test for you, or you can do it online, or you can bribe somebody. And this is where the Indians come into their own. the people that are supplying the truck drivers to the trucking companies are the Indian labour hire firms. Oh yes, we have many qualified drivers, and they all have quite 100 PhDs each. Yeah, sure, okay. So the tests are done online, but they're not done by the person who's actually going to do the driving. They're done by a carefully selected sort of elite group of Indian test takers that speak decent English, and you know, they're the string pullers, and they're paying bribes so that they'll do the online test, and it won't be the guy doing the driving will do the online test. It'll be the nominated trickster, you know, the fraudster who'll do the Indian fraudster who'll do it. That'll be done online. And then they'll either send an actual person that speaks English and knows how to drive to do the test, and they just substitute the identity. So there's, you know, all sorts of identity fraud. In fact, identity fraud is on a mass scale in this you know, in situations like this, or they just bribe the examiner, or they have carefully planted Indians in testing and examiner type positions, and they bribe them, and they of course want to look after the brethren, and they do. And they're given inducements, these Indians, saying, hey, we'll bring out your third cousin from the village, that rural shithole village that you lived in. We'll bring them out here under some pretend skilled visa thing. So there's mass levels of skilled visa fraud, mass level of driving and testing and online examination testing fraud, identity theft fraud and identity substitution fraud on a mass scale, and of course the bribes and so on. So this is hardly a sort of a promising looking scenario, but this is the level of it. But when Indians are caught, I think they don't see the pain. I am only trying to look after my family, that's all, and I just wanted a better life. And they're again utterly shameless. They don't perceive they've done anything wrong. You know, you believed my lies. You know, I did. Someone else took the online test. Well, you shouldn't have had an online test. That's your fault again. You know, silly high trust white society person. You know, I substituted someone else to take their physical driving test, practical driving test. You know, so you got deceived by that. You know, again, that's your fault. You know, I bribed somebody to do this, that's your fault again, and so on. So they're utterly shameless, believe they've done nothing wrong, and they believe that everything they did, every level of fraud, deception, trickery and deceit, everything was justified because I only want to have a better life. So this is the sort of thing. Now in the United States, of course, you know, quite a few people are dying because of the, you know, people on the road that can't drive. Or you know, they're working long shifts, they're high on drugs and so on. Now, you know, it's this idea of not being able to speak English. The driving testing in Australia is in general more rigorous, but still the problem of Indians bribing each other and bribing examiners and again substituting you know, one person substituting, you know, identity theft type or identity fraud type substitution. So there's you know, I was walking past an Indian delivery driver. I think he was Indian, and so he when he was looking at where he was next going to make a delivery of, I don't know, Amazon delivery, I don't know, whatever it was, whatever he's delivering. The instructions of where to go were delivered in Indian, not in English. I don't even know if this guy can speak English other than maybe a few words or something like that. But so the coordinating, you know, the operations center, where they go next, or you know what they do, that's all delivered in not in English but in Indian. So now, if you look at the amount of illegal U-turns that those sort of drivers do in Australia, and so I can't imagine they've been that rigorously examined. Also, again, the identity fraud thing. You know, who is actually driving the truck? Is it the person who's got the license? You know, is there identity fraud there? I mean, who is it? The guy's cousin or the, because they tend to live in stack houses. You know, 20 Indians to a 2-bedroom apartment. And they're all substituting each other's identity to cross over in various jobs, whether it's cleaning or truck driving. Now, delivery driving, whatever it might be, DoorDash or something. So this opens up a huge area for identity substitution and general identity fraud. You don't know who is actually doing the delivery or the driving, who it's supposed to be, and it could be anybody. Is it the person that took the test? Did the person ever take a test? Now, in addition to that, there's an absolute plethora of fake colleges and so on in Australia, where Indians in particular, although Chinese too, but primarily Indians, come to supposedly study, and they get these fake bullshit diplomas. Now the reality is it's not a college at all. It's actually a labour hire firm, and they bring these Indians out with fake skilled visas, and again, tens of thousands come out on these fake skilled visas thing. And they're supposedly at the college studying, but in reality, it's a labour hire firm. They're putting these unqualified Indians out into the. Now, they never were skilled labour. I mean, some illiterate peasant from the, you don't have to pay them very much, and again, you can put them, 10, 15 to a one-bedroom apartment or something like that. You can stack them in, but they're not skilled labour. But somehow Western governments universally just turn a blind eye and look the other way to this sort of thing and allow these scams to continue. But the Indians are quite shameless in this, and they think they not only have a right to it, but they actually display outrage when they're caught out. And I've come across this, and this is when the Indians first started arriving in Australia. I was put under a lot of pressure in the company I worked at to hire these people, because the guy, the board of directors had read in the financial press that there were all these high-powered geniuses that you could employ for low wages, and I advised against it, but they kept on pestering me endlessly so I hired some Indians, and it was the same. They they have claimed to have PhDs in computer science or in computer coding and programming, and you hire a guy who's never cut a line of code in his fucking life. He doesn't even know how to switch the computer on. And so, but when they're full of bluster and so on and outrage, how dare you question me? But when they're finally caught out and they realise that the jig's up, they're utterly shamed. I did nothing wrong. I did what I had to do to get a well-paying, prestigious job. And if I had to see, and if you fell for my trickery and deception, that's your fault, not mine. And that's really what we're dealing with here. And whether it's driving trucks in the United States or programmers cutting code, this is the reality of what we're dealing with. Being Tassus today, your pushback channel. Thank you for listening.